If you read the Design Build Delivers blog, and you probably should, you already know we've been tracking state and local design build legislation. And if you listen to our February full-length episode of the Design Build Delivers podcast on legislative trends, another thing you should do, you also know this is a fast-moving and at times complicated landscape. The overall point is that it's busy, busy, busy. Across the country, we are seeing continued expansion of design build authority, especially in sectors like transportation, aviation, water, and wastewater, where the demand for speed, efficiency, and certainty is only increasing. Alongside that momentum, we are also seeing new layers, policy shifts, funding challenges, evolving requirements, all of which shape how projects actually get delivered. I am Erin Looney, and this is a Design Build Delivers podcast bonus content episode, brought to you by Archons, an Autodesk Platinum partner. So for this bonus episode, which is a companion to February's All Politics is Local, linked in the show notes, we are going back to one piece from our conversation with Richard Thomas and Vince Campanella, and we're going to take a closer look at project labor agreements, or PLAs. Now, if you've ever tried to get a straight answer on PLAs, you know it's not exactly a simple conversation. But Vince is deeply involved in both the legislative landscape and project delivery side of this work, so we asked for his take on what teams are actually navigating on the ground.
You know, from a standpoint of project labor agreements, that seems to be a trend. We're hearing more and more of that across the country, and it kind of reared itself here in the Northwest recently. Governor of Washington signed an executive order back in October mandating project labor agreements on all state projects, infrastructure projects, that's how it was termed, over $35 million. Well, nobody knew what infrastructure meant. On its surface, you would think highways, utility infrastructure, those kind of things. It's got a broader term. Apparently now it means everything, over $35 million. At least that's where it seems to be going at this point in time. But it's showing up. It's now, we're hearing in our state at least, Department of Education, which in Washington is called the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, they're looking to do a PLA, a mandated PLA on all projects over $35 million as well. So they're trying to glom onto that executive order that the governor signed. And they're problematic in a lot of ways. New York's a great example. I mean, New York City is very heavy union, regardless of what you're doing. But you get out of New York metro area, the very rural areas of New York are not. And we got the same problem in Washington. If you're in the Puget Sound area, Tacoma, Seattle, Everett, it can be very union. You get into eastern Washington, where we are in the rural areas, you don't find a lot of heavy union contracting over here. So PLAs are problematic in the sense that depending on how they're structured, they can be very restrictive and cost money because you could potentially be bringing contractors or subcontractors out of the area into an area to meet the PLA requirements. So how those PLAs are structured is very critical in how they're going to impact the projects in general, whether they're design build or anything else.
Last year, we talked to Tom Foley and David Veroli from New York City, and I mentioned something about the PLAs, and I will tell you, it got cut out of the show because it was complicated. It was a lot, and they kind of went off on a little bit of a telling me what it was, and I still think I don't quite understand. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a neutral thing? And depends on the situation.
And that's a great question, Erin. I would expect that DBIA comes down the same way most of the national associations do, and they'd say relatively neutral on them. I'm going to take my DBIA hat off and put on my AGC hat for a second because we're involved in that as well. And AGC is neutral on PLAs because they represent open shop and union contractors. I'm a union contractor, but I work in a rural area where clearly about 40% of our membership around here is union, 60% is non-union. So, you know, we have to have the ability to contract with non-union. A PLA on the surface is a union agreement. It means that the project has to be 100% union. But that's what I was saying. The language around how the PLA is structured is very critical. For example, in Washington, if we have to do PLAs, we're pushing for contractor negotiated PLAs. So let the contractor work with the owner and the labor organizations to structure the PLA language to suit what's available in the local area. For example, if I go to Northeast Washington to Tonasket, which is a town of 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere, and I go to build a school, but I have to have 100% union participation, most of my subcontractors are coming out of Spokane or they're coming out of Seattle. And They're going to pay a significant premium to get 100% union participation. If we can negotiate the PLA to take advantage of what is available in the market area, then it's not going to have as much of a financial impact on that K-12 school that the local taxpayers are funding as much as it might in other areas. So there's a lot of nuances. Tom is right. There's a lot of nuances in the way PLAs are done. I think there's going to be a lot of work on these over the next several years as we see them being used properly and probably improperly. It's going to take some time to see the impacts that are coming out of these. And hopefully between DBIA and AGC, even AIA and ABC, all the national organizations that are all going to be dealing with these, that we're going to be able to come up with some guardrails on being able to put them into place where they need to be and still see success in moving projects forward, especially with design build.
So again, it's still complicated.
It's very complicated. There's no set answer for how to solve that yet.
And so there's your takeaway. Complicated, not an easy answer, and all location dependent. For more on state and local design build legislation and the soap opera that it is, listen to All Politics is Local, the February full-length Design Build Delivers podcast episode, linked in our show notes. Now, PLAs are just one example of how these dynamics show up in real projects and why understanding the local landscape matters for the industry and for your work. And to help you understand and get involved with what's going on where you are, visit the DBIA bookstore at store.dbia.org for free resources to support state and local legislative efforts. You'll also hear many of these same themes reflected in conversations happening across DBIA right now, from our legislative tracking efforts at dbia.org/state to discussions taking place at our water, wastewater, and transportation aviation conferences in Grapevine, Texas, beginning April 13th. If you're already registered, excellent. If you're planning to attend but you haven't registered yet, advance registration is open through April 9th. On-site registration begins April 13th. dbia.org for more information, and I will see you there. Might even chat with you on DBIA's social media platforms. You never know. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, and Facebook at DBIA National. The Design Build Delivers podcast is brought to you by Archons, an Autodesk Platinum partner. Learn more at archons.us/DBIA.